Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you as always for stopping by. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Of course, the S&P 500's current bull market is now longer than the one that lasted for most of the 1990s, but it isn't as strong. This is from Lisa Bramovitz. The Turkish lira was little changed on Thursday after Turkey accused Washington of waging economic war. Essentially, the Turks have made it impossible to short the lira. President Erdogan's spokesman said comments by President Trump's national security advisor showed that the United States is targeting Turkey's economy, and he said it was not reflecting NATO's fundamental principles and values. His statement is proof that the Trump administration is targeting a NATO ally as part of an economic war. The Trump administration has established that it intends to use trade, tariffs and sanctions to start a global trade war, Callan said. Ambassador Bolton told Reuters during a visit to Israel he was skeptical about the pledge of $15 billion of investment support for Turkey by Qatar's emir, which was utterly insufficient to have an impact on Turkey's economy. My piece on the 13th of August was cold Turkey. 20th of August, I said, President Trump has apparently embraced a strong dollar and, of course, coercive financial warfare, and tweeted this on 16th of August. Our economy is doing better than ever. Money is pouring into our cherished dollar like rarely before. Company earnings are higher than ever. Inflation is low and business optimism is higher than it has ever been. For the first time in many decades, we are protecting our workers, he said. Of course, then simultaneously he was criticizing Powell. But the point is, I think, as an instrument, a stick with which to beat his adversaries, he's embracing the strong dollar. The Russian ruble dropped to its lowest level since 2016 as investors braced for fresh sanctions. This goes back to my comment that Trump is relishing his financial warfare strategies. He has Khamenei on the run. Maduro in Venezuela is being attacked by a remote-controlled drone. Z suddenly looks ever so fragile. China, Russia, Turkey, and now South Africa. Trump is assaulting emerging countries one by one. The latest attack on South Africa on farm and land seizures. And I said, if this goes fully fledged, US South Africa, and it might, because it plays like sweet music to POTUS's base, then the ZAR is going to 17. In case you missed it, Putin accelerates de-dollarization, Russia buys more gold in face of tougher sanctions, Kremlin adds 26.1 tons to gold reserves, most since November. So we're dealing with a very fluid situation, but for now I firmly believe in the stronger dollar, and that Trump, whether by accident or design, has found it as a very coercive financial instrument. So on our fifth day in the Gobi Desert, it was actually only my second time viewing the stars with a clear night. William Riley, fantastic photograph. Scientists confirm water ice has been spotted at the moon's poles. Sky News. The team has directly observed definitive evidence of ice deposits on the surface of the moon using a scientific instrument that measures how molecules absorb light. I like this from Ranthambore Park, the bold one. Took me back to William Blake, the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? Political reflections Mr. Cohen's father urged him not to protect the president, saying he didn't survive the Holocaust to have his name sullied by Mr. Trump. This is the moment all of Trump's anti-media rhetoric has been working towards, says the Washington Post. Indeed, don't believe your eyes and ears, believe only me. This has been President Trump's message to the public for the past 2 years, pounded in without a break. The press is the enemy, the news is fake. In raucous campaign rallies, in live-filled Fox News interviews, through dissembling surrogates such as Kellyanne Conway and Rudolph Giuliani and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Trump has done his best to prepare the ground for a moment like Tuesday afternoon. It arrived with an extraordinary bang. Within a single frantic hour, the world learned that Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, and his former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, had become felons. Trump himself was implicated in Cohen's crime, but in a divided, disbelieving nation, will this really turn out to be the epic moment it looks like? No. Or will Trump's intense years-long campaign to undermine the media and truth itself pay off now in the clutch? If what we learn today doesn't matter to people, what will? Asked Chris Cuomo on his CNN show. Exactly, that's the point. It's an excellent question, and the answer may be almost nothing. Trump, at a gut level, understands this better than anyone. He knows what he can get away with. That took me to Chico Not Groucho. Who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes? Chinese internet users jumped by 30 million in the first half of 2018, topping 800 million for the first time. This is really a signal of the strength of the e-commerce community. Jack Ma has become an ambassador at large for the Chinese Communist Party. China generates the biggest mobile app sales in the world, with 788 million people in the country accessing the web via mobile. Maybe that's not surprising. Let's go to the currency markets. Euro dollar 115.70, dollar index 95.33, Japanese yen 110.82, the Swiss franc 0.9839, the pound 128.80. The Australian dollar has taken a big tumble, 0.7295, so recovering a little bit. India rupee back over 70 at 70.065. South Korean won 1121.22. The rial has now gone over 4, as it did earlier this week, 404.10. Egyptian pound has turned out to be a safe haven, 17.8735. That's because they took all the adjustment a couple of years ago. South African rand, 14.3531. I'm very bearish now about that. Australian dollar breaking trendline support from 2001. Amber flag, says Sun Chartist. Last at 7294. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. Look, we broke out of that 94 to 96 range. We've then come back into it. We're right now at 95.33. I think the move is up to 100. The question is how we go about it. And I think, if you can get it close to 94, you're onto a good thing. Euro dollar last at 115.70. I think you sell rebounds. It's been a sharp rebound, but I think you now look to sell it maybe with a 116 handle. FOMO trap. This is why I warn people about intraday charts. This is Peter Brandt talking about Bitcoin, which was last at 6,430. The Bitcoin rally stopped as the SEC rejected more Bitcoin ETF proposals, failed to show how exchanges would prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices. So essentially that's what stalled that. Failed bounce. Facebook investors who bought the historic dip aren't seeing a quick recovery. Only FANG stock in the red in 2018. I want to be shorted, but I got it wrong because it rallied really substantially after I sort of thought it was going to fall and crumble away. I still think it's headed lower, and I think the trade will make money overall. Commodity markets, gold, let's have a look, 1189. I think it's a big sell. Exclusive from Reuters, Saudi Aramco listing plan halted, oil giant disbands advisors. Saudi Arabia shifts its attention to a proposed acquisition of a strategic stake in local petrochemicals maker Saudi Basic Industries SABIC. The decision to call off the IPO was taken some time ago, but no one can disclose this, so statements are gradually going that way. First delay, then calling off. A Saudi source familiar with the IPO plan said. This is a chart of WTI, which had a very strong rebound yesterday. Let's move on to Africa. Uganda military has released its first video of Bobby Wine since his arrest and detention a week ago. And this, then I saw a press release from the lawyers. It was a Kafkaesque scene at Makindye as we were stymied at every turn by incoherent bureaucracy, confusion and excuses as officials scrambled to block Bobby Wine's lawyers from doing our job, Simon Wolf. They also issued a press release, this is Amsterdam and Partners LLP, denouncing the violation of Bobby Wine's right to counsel. Government of Uganda is engaged in the cover-up of alleged torture and continuing illegal detention of lawmakers, says Robert Amsterdam. Bobby Wine has been unlawfully detained since August 14, is now being denied full access to his lawyers, which is a violation of his right to counsel. It was a Kafkaesque scene at Makindye as we were stymied at every turn by incoherent bureaucracy, confusion and excuses as officials scrambled to block Bobby Wine's lawyers from doing our jobs. The officials attempted to select limited members of the legal team to enter an offer which we refused on the grounds that the government has no right to choose the client's counsel. Everything the government is doing right now is about controlling the public's knowledge of their abhorrent treatment of Bobby Wine, said Amsterdam. They are waiting for his injuries to heal, and then they will parade him in front of the media, only at such a time when they can deny the acts of torture he has suffered. Bobby Wine was not arrested, this is Amsterdam and Partners, because somebody threw rocks at a motorcade, and certainly wasn't arrested over any non-existent firearms. He was arrested for exercising his basic political rights to freedom of association and expression. He was arrested and brutally tortured because he represents an increasingly popular alternative, and the NRM will do anything and everything to stamp out these hopes for political renewal. And this goes back to something I wrote in November 2014 when Blaise Compaoré was overthrown in Ouagadougou. And I said, what's clear is that a very young, very informed, very connected African youth demographic, many characterize it as a demographic dividend, which for beautiful Blaise Compaoré turned into a demographic terminator, is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and a rebalancing has begun, and here we're seeing it happen in real time. And I was saying more of the same by President Museveni is simply not tenable, and I was wondering if he realizes this, or if he doesn't, there is somebody who's capable of telling him it. I don't think there is that either. In Nairobi, a concert was held for Free Bobby Wine. This is a photograph from El Gouverne. Eritrea mulls a new port as Ethiopia rapprochement spurs investors. Eritrea is considering building a port on its Red Sea coastline to export potash from deposits being developed in the Horn of Africa nation. Plans for the harbour signal the country's re-emergence as a potential investor destination after its surprise rapprochement with Ethiopia last month ended 2 decades of political tensions. The facility could be used to ship potash from Ethiopia and adds to a series of port developments in the strategically located region by nations including Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, and the self-declared Republic of Somaliland. The port would be situated at the Bay of Anfile, 75 kilometers east of the 1.2 billion metric ton Kaluli potash deposit. Those discussions have accelerated following the recent rapprochement between Eritrea and Ethiopia, he said, with the rapid changes and the rapid improvement in the geopolitical situation. Things we weren't thinking were possible in the past are now possible. It's a no-brainer that if you could have a port there and potash on the Ethiopian side, obviously you will choose that port. Before the peace came, that was an impossibility. I wrote about this early August when I wrote about the Indian Ocean economy in a port race. And I was saying, today from Massawa, Eritrea, admittedly on the Red Sea, to Djibouti, from Berbera to Mogadishu, from Lamu to Mombasa to Tanga to Bagamoyo to Dar es Salaam, through Beira and Maputo, all the way to Durban and all points in between. We're witnessing a port race of sorts as everyone seeks to get a piece of the Indian Ocean port action. China and the BRI initiative, the Gulf countries who now appear to see the Horn of Africa as their hinterland, Japan and India to a lesser degree, are all jostling for optimal geo-economic positioning. Overlay the geopolitics, and it's worth noting that the geopolitics has become much more fluid. Fluidity has been engendered by the spectacular arrival of Prime Minister Abiy in Ethiopia, which is landlocked of course, but a key future taker of port facilities, who has made peace with President Afewerki's Eritrea, and is surely set to undercut Djibouti and even Lapset, both projects which seem to have been predicated to some degree on a permanent freeze between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Investments in ports have a long lead time, and I'm not certain that those same investments are able to recalibrate at the speed with which the geopolitics is moving. The big risk is that some of these port investments will be Hambantoted. A heated argument broke out in the offices of President Emerson Mnangagwa over who was in charge of national security. This is a Reuters report. As Zimbabwe braced for opposition protests after this month's disputed election, a heated argument broke out in the offices of President Emerson Mnangagwa over who was in charge of national security. Two people familiar with the meeting said at one point Vice President Constantino Chiwenga reminded Mnangagwa that it was he who had installed the president in power after last year's coup against Robert Mugabe. And I think that's correct. Chiwenga was unhappy. He said the election had been badly managed and stability needed to be restored. It got heated. Chiwenga said no one should forget who got rid of Mugabe. He's very much in charge. The South African rand weakened as Trump tweets about the land debate. We already touched on that. Weakened as much as 1.7% after Trump said he asked US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations. The South African government hit back, tweeting that it totally rejects this narrow perception which only seeks to divide our nation. The US's acting ambassador to the country will be summoned to explain Trump's comments. Two people familiar with the situation said on Thursday. Look, he's got the big stick, and if he chooses to wield it, he can. And that's why I've become very bearish. We're currently at 14.3466 on the rand versus the dollar, and I see a move to 17. One tweet does not make a book, said Warwick Butler, a currency trader at Standard Bank. There are far too many other components affecting the rand. If the dollar reverses its recent correction, then so too will the rand, regardless of Twitter. I've asked Secretary Pompeo to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations, he said. The large-scale killing of farmers. South African government is now seizing land from white farmers. Tucker Carlson, Fox News. This is the first time Trump has used the word Africa on Twitter as president to express support for white people on the recommendation of white nationalists, Fox News. South African oil shares down 2.32% year to date. Dollar versus rand, I think you sell the rand. You've got to have your stop somewhere in the 13s, but I'm looking for a very big move here. Egyptian pound, 17.8735. It's become a safe haven, would you believe? Nigerian oil share down 7.59% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange up 11.23% year to date. IMF put lures investors to Angola's Eurobonds as yields fall. And this is something I spoke about on the 2nd of January when I said I'm keen on being long of Angolan risk. The devil is in the detail, I said, of the execution, however, and I sort of settled on I would probably look to be long Angola Euro bonds. In Africa, fintech investments are estimated to have increased from $200 million to $800 million between 2014 and 2016. Moody's Investor Services said last month when it cut Zambia's credit rating by one notch to Caa1, the 7th highest junk level. Zambia's got lots of problems. Debt to GDP is rising towards 70% of GDP. Standard Chartered Kenya reported first half earnings per share surged to 31.141%. Loans and advances were down by 1.143% to just 111.74 billion. Kenya government securities position up 9.99%. Total assets up 2.393%. Total operating income up 8.998%. Loan loss provision reduced by 45.214%. They're always the most conservative. Therefore, now I think they've been conservative and they're writing back stuff, which is a very bullish development for the P&L. Profit before tax and exceptional items up 32%. Profit after tax up 30%. EPS up 31.141%. They've hiked the interim dividend by 11.1%. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the period, 33.456 billion shillings. Look, they played seriously good defense and now it looks primed to play for growth. The loan loss provision reduction reduced first half earnings, hiking the half-year dividend plus 11.11%, I think is a passive-aggressive move. Very shapely results, it's a buy. NIC Bank reported first half earnings per share declined 11%. Loans and advances to customers, interestingly, look at that, although it's down 1.539%, its customer loan book is bigger than Standard Chartered. Total assets up 6% to 200 billion. Total operating income down 1.681%. Loan loss provision reduced by 22.961%. Profit after tax down 2.123%. EPS down 11.041%. It's seriously inexpensive on a PE ratio basis of 5.247, and it's a premier tier 2 bank franchise. In fact, they're going to look for some relaxation in the rate cap, then that's definitely going to favor somebody like NIC. Cheap, inexpensive, also having to hunker down, but clearly they've done the hunkering. NSC, which of course is listed, also issued first half earnings. Operating income was up 24.345%, interest income was up 24.942%, admin expenses grew 8.901%, PBT up 68.4%, profit after tax up 72.156%, EPS up 73.33%. Equity and bonds turnover was up 32% and 30% respectively, and that really drove it. It's a volume business. 32% increase in equity turnover. Equity levies were therefore up quite sharply. They're concluding pilot phase testing of the derivatives markets. I thought these were attractive results. It's a volume game, and volumes were up year on year. They have architected the markets and now need to accelerate volumes. Equity Bank have already released their half-year results, but the point I wanted to make was one that Kestrel said. They said ROE of 24.1%, PE of 9.2, equity trades at a price to book of 2.2 times compared to 1.5 times at KCB and Co-op Bank. But that premium is because of the acceleration in the regional model, I think. Interesting Kestrel capital perspective on ARM, if you want, that's on a link towards the bottom of Rich wrap-ups. And of course, yesterday we also had another set of results from National Bank, which reported a loss of 83 cents per share. Nairobi all shares up 1.61% year to date. The NSE 20 is down 9.89% year to date. And with that, I shall take my leave and appreciate that you stopped by and even listened right to the end of this. Thank you.